What's up, everybody? It's Jared with Capture the Magic. And when it comes to cut the line systems, we've seen quite a few changes, especially at Disney World the past 5 years as they had Fast Passes. Those became Genie Plus, and now that has become Lightning Lane Multi-Pass. And they also borrowed the idea from Universal in terms of Universal's Express Pass, and now they offer a Lightning Lane Premier Pass that operates very similar to Universal's. And for the longest time, Universal really has never changed their cut the line system, which is known as Express Pass. But it seems Universal may be taking a page out of Disney's book and offering single attraction Express Passes. So we're going to go through the details of this, get some thoughts on it, and talk about it here. It says Universal Orlando is testing Express Pass single attraction line skipping for $25 per ride, which I will say, it's fairly steep, especially when you compare that to Disney in terms of their single line attractions. Universal Orlando is testing a new version of its popular Express Pass system that allows guests to purchase one-time line skipping access at single attractions for $25 each. This covers eligible rides and how it compares to Lightning Lane Single Pass at Walt Disney World and what this could mean for an expansion of Express Pass at Universal Orlando. For starters, this comes during the popular fall break period at Universal Orlando, and this shouldn't come as a huge surprise as we already reported that Walt Disney World's worst crowds since Easter are here, and attendance trends are mostly the same at both Universal Orlando and Disney World, with Epic Universe being the colossal caveat to that. So suffice to say, Universal Orlando is very busy right now. The two legacy parks are in the midst of their two worst weeks since Easter, which is consistent with Walt Disney World. I'm not there on the ground to share reports of feel-like crowds, but from photos I've seen on social media, just entering Universal Studios and Islands of Adventure in the morning looks pretty brutal. I think you can see on social media, there was a line all the way back into City Walk to get into Universal Studios, I do know, a couple of days ago in the morning. So it has been very, very busy. It says, anyways, these peak season crowds are the backdrop against which Universal Orlando is testing something new to capitalize on higher demand for line skipping services. This part makes sense as such a test can't really be conducted during the off-season as it would yield inconclusive results since few guests would feel properly incentivized to buy. Also a fair point. Universal Express Single Attraction Access, I hope they don't stick with that name because that is a very long name, is currently available for in-app for Revenge of the Mummy at Universal Studios Florida and Skull Island Reign of Kong at Islands of Adventure. Those seem like two interesting attractions to offer this at, especially Reign of Kong. It says Universal's wording on this is a limited time offering. Skip one regular ride line now. Purchase Universal Express Single Attraction Access, terrible name, terrible name, and fast forward to amazing by skipping one of our regular lines. This limited time offering is only available at select locations. Valid theme park admission required for entry. These offers sell out fast. Says please note that you can only select one offer at this time. So both Revenge of the Mummy and Reign of Kong are essentially $25 to skip the line. The total cost after tax for either attraction is $26.62, and as of right now, I see availability for either attraction and would not expect either to sell out fast. And I wouldn't either, especially those attractions. For reference, here are today's prices for Lightning Lane Single Pass at Walt Disney World. Seven Dwarfs Mine Train is $14, Tron Light Cycle Run is $22, Guardians of the Galaxy is $19, Star Wars Rise of the Resistance is $25, and Avatar Flight of Passage is $18. Says, I'm not the least bit surprised that Universal Orlando is testing an a la carte line skipping access. A lot of Walt Disney World fans give Universal a free pass when it comes to upcharges, nickel and diming, etc., because they have blind spots for the most egregious examples, and in fairness, many guests get free line skipping by virtue of their hotel stays. That's a fair argument. That a lot of times the criticisms that are levied at Disney World are not also levied at Universal, but you also have more precedent at Disney World. You had fast passes that were part of it for a very long time. You had Magical Express. You had certain perks that were associated with a trip that have been taken away and been monetized. At Universal, they've always had Express Pass. They never offered a cut the line system as part of your ticket. So basically, they've stayed pretty consistent. They haven't pulled away perks. And I think this is also where it gets into, the commentary on that is Disney has made lots of changes where Universal, again, it's not a necessarily discount option in terms of pricing of tickets and things of that nature. Many times the food at Universal is actually more expensive than at Disney World. It depends on where you go, but some of those prices can get kind of up there for certain items. But Universal has been much more consistent in that way. And really, that's going to come with the territory. Disney has always been the biggest player in town. Universal is becoming much more relevant, of course, eating into more market share, building Epic Universe. They're going to continue, in my opinion, to eat into more market share in the coming years. But I do think Universal will hit that point where you do start seeing a lot more criticism of them, just because that's kind of human nature. If we look at just how things tend to go, people root for the underdog many times. They don't see as many fault in it. And then when something or someone becomes much more relevant, then people like to tear it down. I think you're probably going to start seeing a lot more people be a lot more critical of Universal as they continue to gain market share and become more popular, just by virtue of human nature in many ways. So regardless, it's not like Comcast of all companies is different from Disney. Both want to maximize revenue and grow their businesses, and will charge what the market will bear in that quest. The biggest material difference is that Universal and Disney have different fan bases, guest profiles, and places in American culture. Universal is gaining ground, and their aggressiveness is admirable, but it's precisely because they want a slice of what Disney has. Well, and they have been taking part of a slice of what Disney has. It's not out of corporate benevolence, loving their fans, or whatever. Perhaps most importantly, Comcast just invested $7 billion in a brand new theme park and really wants and needs to see ROI on that sooner rather than later. Although they aren't going to say as much on earnings calls, my guess is that Epic Universe hasn't quite met early expectations. Attendance is still fairly low, and necessarily so, given ongoing capacity woes, but that's another topic for another post. So he did say my guess. There's nothing that points to that. If we look at Epic Universe, we look at the Comcast earnings call, the past one that they had, which was 1 month of Epic Universe on the books for them. You saw, really, it was a couple of weeks of it on the books for them. They saw almost a 20% increase in revenue from that. We've also seen the Orange County tourism tax, as associated with hotel stays in the area, have record-breaking months every single month since Epic Universe has been open, and the local government has credited Epic Universe for that. Now, there's no way to know what Universal's internal goals were for Epic Universe, but I would argue it has been very successful for Universal. I think in the next earnings call that coming up, we're going to see yet another pretty substantial bump in their revenue. And I've talked about before of talking with people inside the travel industry. They are seeing quite the shift of people booking Universal Studios vacations and not really splitting time with Universal and Disney as much as people are just booking week-long vacations at Universal, where previously they were going to Disney. And so some of the ones I talked to said they were seeing, quite a decrease in the Disney bookings, but seeing quite the increase in the Universal bookings. So if he's talking about his own personal expectations, that's a different conversation. I don't know what those would be, but I think undoubtedly Epic Universe has been very successful for Universal. Even Mark Woodbury said that they are already starting to see a market shift in terms of market share since Epic has been open. So I think everything points to Epic Universe having been successful thus far. And I've talked about many times, Epic Universe is the weakest right now that it will ever be. It's a brand new theme park, pretty much in still a beta testing mode. And he's not wrong in the fact that they're still capping attendance here because of the wait times here. Now, it's hard to really gauge. A lot of times you look at wait times for demand, and obviously there is a lot of demand for Epic Universe, but we don't have enough historical evidence yet of Epic Universe to really be able to judge those wait times and compare them to other parks, just because some of this could be the park layout, it could be the ride operations. There's lots of things that go into this. But I think in the early going, these were all things that Universal was probably expecting to, happen. When you're opening up a brand new theme park or brand new rides, these issues are going to pop up. So I personally don't agree with that. I don't think there's anything to point to say they haven't met expectations, because we really don't know what those expectations are. So I really think you have to define, what are those expectations? What are the quarterly revenue earnings that they would like to see from this? Obviously, we don't know, but I've never felt that Epic Universe was something that Universal was looking at of just this specific time period. This is a long-term investment that they're going to continue to add attractions to. It's going to become a much bigger destination as they iron out these issues, as they add more rides to it, and as Universal Orlando continues to become a bigger destination. So sure, if you were one of those people that thought Epic Universe was going to be a Disney killer and Disney was going to completely fall off on their attendance and nobody was going to go there and they're all going to go to Universal, sure, that's fallen short of those expectations, but those expectations were never realistic. I mean, that was never going to take place, and I've argued many times on this channel over multiple videos that, this is an incremental type of thing you're looking at here, where you continue to eat into market share as they have done the past decade, and Epic Universe is part of that ongoing plan. So I'll just say I disagree there, because there's really, that's just very much how you feel about it, and we just don't have those numbers to really know. But I do think when you look at everything else around it, I think Epic Universe has been very successful. That brings us to experiments like this with Universal Express Single Attraction Access, where the company tries to create a new revenue stream and achieve higher guest spending with impulse buys. It's a great idea in theory. Universal Orlando's existing line skipping products are aimed up market. They are expensive, whether they're included with top-tier hotel stays or purchased as an a la carte product. Not totally the same, but more akin to Lightning Lane Premier Pass at Walt Disney World than MultiPass. Well, I would say they're kind of the same in terms of Disney stole the idea from Premier Pass from Universal. So I think they're very similar of Premier Pass compared to Express Pass, considering that is basically the entire premise that Universal has had for Express Pass for a very long time. They haven't changed anything up until offering this new single pass option right now. And Disney has changed theirs multiple times. And then the Premier Pass was something they clearly got the idea from Universal in terms of offering a version of Lightning Lane over at the Disney World parks. Whereas Walt Disney World created that new revenue stream last year at the higher end of the spectrum, Universal is now aiming downstream at guests who were priced out of the highest tier hotels or the bundled Express Pass. Given that regular Express Pass starts at $210 today, this is a comparative bargain. There are undoubtedly guests who would pay $25 to skip the line at their favorite attractions, but not shell out $200 for line skipping at all popular rides. The problem, as is likely obvious to anyone who has ever visited Universal Orlando, is that these are very undesirable attractions for Express Pass. Revenge of the Mummy is borderline, but it also has single rider. By contrast, it's criminal to be charging any amount for line skipping at Skull Island Reign of Kong. Well, I don't disagree there, but I think this is obviously a test. So if you're testing a new thing here, you probably don't want to start it at Hagrid's because there's going to be a ton of demand, obviously, for Hagrid's. I think offering it at Revenge of the Mummy and Reign of Kong, these are very mid-tier types of attractions in terms of demand. And so there will be some people that probably purchase these, but you're not overloading a system that you're testing is probably my guess there. Because I would agree that, these are not rides that people would be really looking to shell out $25 to ride. But given it's a testing phase, I can understand perhaps why they chose these types of attractions. That's also the problem with this test of Universal Express Single Attraction Access. Is it really going to yield any useful data points? If this doesn't sell out, and I'm sure hope it doesn't, does that actually speak to demand for this particular product offering? And if it does sell out, does that actually say anything useful about demand and pricing for the real headliners? The answers to those questions are probably all no. If this is as unpopular as we expect it to be, that says absolutely nothing about the market for an a la carte line skipping at Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure or Jurassic World Velocicoaster or any ride with higher demand. If Express Pass is selling out for $25 at Reign of Kong and Revenge of the Mummy, it's got to be worth like $100 at Hagrid's. I wouldn't pay anything for this, period, but $100 for Hagrid seems more logical to me than $25 for Reign of Kong, and I'm not even remotely kidding. I don't think they would be charging $100. If you're charging $100 for a single line access, now that Hagrid's is part of Express Pass, people would just get the Express Pass. So, I mean, he's just throwing out a number there, so I don't think they'd be charging that. They could charge more than $25, but I think it's rather obvious that, at least to me, understanding like a tech side of things, that I don't know if they're necessarily testing the demand of this necessarily. They could just be testing the functionality of the system to see how it operates on a lower demand type of attractions here. I think that probably is what's going on here because, again, I agree with him. I don't think $25 is worth Revenge of the Mummy or Reign of Kong, which would just point to, did they think these rides were going to sell out? I don't think they probably are naive enough to think that, but they're probably just testing how does it work, adding this onto the existing system, some stuff like that. Like that could be what they're looking at here and not really trying to get a test in terms of demand would be kind of my guess there. Honestly, I really wonder what's up with this test. It's almost as if team at Universal Orlando being tasked with this project wants it to fail. As someone who dabbles lightly in conspiracy theories, I dabble rather heavily sometimes, it wouldn't surprise me if C-suite leadership tasked the park teams with finding more Express Pass revenue, instructed them to look at what Walt Disney World is doing and try some of that. In such a scenario, it's possible that the park team doesn't actually want to monetize even more or impair the regular guest experience, so they sabotage the test by choosing two attractions that would garner low sales and have minimal negative guest impact. I hope this is what happened, and if so, good on Universal Orlando local leadership. I mean, that's quite the conspiracy theory to assume that you had Comcast C-Suite just wanting more money out of the parks, and so essentially Universal Orlando would be trying to sabotage it because they want a better guest experience. I mean, listen, that would kind of go against his argument he had earlier that both, Universal and Disney World are just about getting the most money they can out of people. That would actually speak to where he said neither company, had benevolence in terms of just wanting guest satisfaction. That would kind of go against that. I don't think that's what's happening here. I don't think we have some sort of internal battle going on between the parks and Comcast C-Suite. It says, to be clear, I have no clue whether this occurred. It's also possible that this is part of a concerted, bigger picture plan and one that Universal wants to finesse to avoid breaking the guest experience. There you go. As we've seen with the relatively recent introduction of Express Pass at Donkey Kong Minecart Madness, Harry Potter The Battle of the Ministry, and Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure, line skipping can wreak havoc on wait times and the regular guest experience. As one final dose of conspiratorial thinking, all right, I could also see Universal Orlando wanting to do everything possible within the bounds of their contract with Loews Hotels to minimize the value the unlimited Express Pass guests of select resorts receive. I don't know about that. I'd mentioned this before, but I'd be willing to bet that Universal regrets making that sweetheart deal back in the day, since Helios Grand is not offering Express Pass. However, I'm not really sure how they go about undermining the on-site hotel Express Pass without also negatively impacting the people paying $200 out of pocket for the standalone product. Well, I do know that the reason that you don't have Helios or Grand Helios as part of the offering that includes, the Express Pass with your stay is because the original contract included those hotels it was included on, and they would have to renegotiate that contract. I have heard that from multiple Universal team members that have kind of let me know about the inside workings of that, and they're not wanting to renegotiate that, or basically maybe Lowe's is unwilling to. I don't know if Universal regrets it, because I'm sure they can just, again, with you have more demand, you can price those hotels higher to kind of make up that difference in many ways. So I haven't heard anything personally that Universal necessarily regrets that. I think it's a great perk. I think it is something that Disney should actually take as a model. If they're going to steal anything from Universal, I actually think they should steal that model of, if you're staying at these deluxe hotels, you should get some sort of Lightning Lane perk with that, whether that is a certain number of multi-passes with your stay, whether that's, maybe not the Premier Pass, but I do think there should be some more incentives by being a hotel guest and getting certain perks that you otherwise would have to pay out of pocket for. So I don't, like I said, I don't know if Universal necessarily regrets it, but I do think from a consumer end of things, it is a fantastic perk to have. And I think it's something that definitely has helped Universal. But if they did want to get more revenue out of the parks, I suppose they could look at that as a thing that works against them. But again, I think they could price the hotels to sort of make up the difference there. So I don't really know how much that would make too much of a difference. In any case, it should be interesting to watch how the test of Universal Express single attraction access continues to unfold. I would bet we see an expansion of this product over time, as that $7 billion park isn't going to pay for itself overnight. And Universal has other big expansion plans around the globe, as well as the existing parks, that need funding from Cabletown. What will be more interesting here is the where and when of Universal Express single attraction access. Universal doesn't have a ton of excess bandwidth at its most popular rides during peak season, but it does at the less popular ones, or during off-peak dates. Mid-November and early December come to mind. Whatever they do, it'll need to coexist alongside the more expensive and more lucrative Express Pass bundles without cannibalizing sales of those. He says, then there's Epic Universe, which is its own can of worms, and we do not expect this test to occur there anytime this year. I don't agree with him on a lot of the points he was making. I mean, obviously, he even said himself some of these were conspiratorial. I don't know if I would go into the fact that Universal Orlando is having some sort of internal battle with the C-suite of Comcast. I think it's just as simple as exploring another revenue option, because if there is demand there and people will pay it, then it's something that obviously they're going to explore. My guess is here that you choose these two attractions simply because you don't want to overload an insanely popular attraction like Hagrid's, which already has increased wait times due to the fact that it has Express Pass now, but you also want to test the system. Kind of like, you don't want to start something brand new on something that's going to potentially be overloaded and try and throw a whole wrench into that. So it makes a lot of sense to me that you would start testing this type of system on middle tier attractions. I don't think Universal Orlando is deluded enough to think that people are wanting to pay $25 to ride Revenge of the Mummy or Reign of Kong, because I completely agree there. Like, I would not pay those prices. And you're talking the highest end there that even Disney offers for like Rise of the Resistance, which clearly that ride has more demand than these two rides at Universal, or even like Cosmic Rewind, which is, you know, priced at $19, has more demand than these two rides at Universal. So I think the pricing is interesting. I don't think it's worth it for these two, but if you were going to say $25 for Hagrid's, I think a lot of people would probably jump on that. Because I think a lot of people probably get Express Pass simply for Hagrid's potentially, now that it's included. So, you know, they're probably feeling it around there. So the price point here is interesting because are they going to go just a flat rate on certain attractions all the time? Are they going to tier it like Disney does? So if you are going to look at this, if you take it at its face value here, that $25 for these two attractions, you obviously would charge more for Hagrid's if you're going for more of a basing this on popularity type of thing. I don't hardly think you would sell any of these for these two attractions at this price point. But I would be very worried if they're already looking at $25 here, and this is, you know, they're going off of this pricing model. I don't think you would see Hagrid's at $100, but I could see Hagrid's at like $50. And that's an interesting conversation. Is Hagrid's at $50, which I think is much more realistic if this is the type of model that they're looking at. Would people pay that? I think a lot of people probably would, but I also don't like from a guest standpoint that we see this increased prices here of these single pass attractions, because obviously I think if Universal did this and it was successful, probably Disney would follow in many ways, and Disney already has been and will continue to increase their prices until there is pushback. So I don't really know what to read of this completely, if this is just them sort of dangling out here as a test to see how this goes and if there's demand here, or just testing the system. But I think $25 per ride is the thing that I look at more with the question marks of, is that just for these attractions? Or are they looking at $25 per ride on just a flat rate on all these various attractions? That would be the question I would have. But I have a hard time thinking as well that they would lower this price, because once you introduce a price into the market, you typically do not see a lower price follow it. I have a hard time thinking that they offer this at $25 for these two attractions, and then when they actually offer this, like say resort wide at all the place, you know, all the different parks on various attractions, that they would offer, you know, at like $15. I feel like you're kind of almost setting a low bar here, which that is very high. But again, Universal has priced Express Pass higher, and the argument I suppose could be that they have very limited supply of these to not impact Express Pass as much, or the regular one, which that is something you would have to contend with, because obviously this potentially could devalue your higher end product. I'll just say, if they're going to charge $25 flat fee on the rides that they offer Single Pass Express for, and if Hagrid's was one of them, and say Velocicoaster, or, you know, other high-end attractions, you're talking about like Epic Universe, like Harry Potter Battle of the Ministry, and those were $25, you know, that's in line with what Disney's done. You can make an argument that a lot of people would buy those. But if you start going up to $35, $45, $50, I'll have the same arguments I've had about Disney doing this, which is, how high can you really take these, considering you're talking about, you know, percentage points of a day ticket, and then how close are you going to get to the overall Express Pass itself? I would not like that. I would not be a fan of that at all. So this is potentially kind of nothing. Maybe this is a test they're running and then we don't see this pop up, or maybe this is part of a greater offering they're going to do. And then there's going to be a lot of question marks around this price point. And then very likely, if Universal's pricing this at $25 and it does well for them, potentially that would give Disney also leverage to be like, well, let's price all of our single attraction lightning lanes at also $25. So as many times as Disney raises prices and Universal follows suit with them, because they don't want to be looked at as a second tier, you know, resort, you can see Disney doing the same thing, because they obviously don't want to feel like they're leaving money on the table, and they might look at that and be like, well, the market says that these are worth more, so we're going to price this higher. So I don't like that end of things, as both theme park destinations, you know, keep trying to one up each other in price, and then we start getting into higher prices even quicker. So I guess that's where I would stand on this until there's more information. I find this interesting and potentially, you know, concerning that you would be pricing these things where you're pricing them for these attractions. Yeah, we'll see when it comes to Express Pass single options here. I don't like the name. I don't like the price point. I don't like the attractions that are being offered with it, but it is a test. I guess we'll see. And whatever, changes they make to this, or if they expand these offerings, and if they do, we will talk about it on here and let you know about it and give my thoughts on the matter. But until then, that is going to be it though for this video. So if you like this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel, as we do lots of coverage here of Universal Studios, Epic Universe, Disney World, and pop culture. And let us know in the comments, what do you think about all this? And until next time, we will see you in the parks.